In my opinion, I came across a video a couple of days ago by Ted Forbes, and it really got me thinking. Ted was comparing two cameras from the same manufacturer. One was a DSLR, one was a rangefinder style. And he was saying, why so many cameras? And it really got me thinking in regards to how many cameras there are available in the market today. Both cameras, in actual fact, offer different systems inside the camera with regards to maybe the video aspect of each camera, and obviously the way you focus through the camera. But both were interchangeable lens cameras. And it got me thinking that basically, as you know, my favorite system that I use now is the Fuji system. And I think probably Fuji were the first ones who really to sort of start this off, with maybe the exception of Olympus, in that they decided to create a rangefinder camera, and then they created the DSLR camera. So my thoughts were, why have they done this? I think basically the reason for it is the fact that they came across the idea that some people preferred to use the rangefinder camera like Leica in the old days, and the Voigtlander type cameras that were available, and the old Nikon SP cameras, the old film camera. And yet there were still people that preferred to use a DSLR. In other words, using the viewfinder effectively in the center of the camera. Over time, I've found that I prefer to use a rangefinder styled camera, and I learnt my lesson by buying the Fuji X-T10 basically almost as a brand new camera within about 3 months or so of its release. But over time, I realized that I didn't enjoy using the DSLR anymore, and I preferred using the rangefinder style camera with the viewfinder offset to the side of the camera, allowing me to use my other eye to view other aspects of the image that I'm making. So this is an interesting point. So now we're getting to the stage now where there are so many cameras coming out now that are effectively teasing you to become better photographers. And let's be honest, the camera does not make you a better photographer. It's basically the gray matter in your head that makes you a better photographer, and your eye. And also another thing, practice. So again, I've furthered on this thought as regards to the market is now getting saturated with new cameras coming out maybe every 3-4 months, especially in the case of Sony, where they decided and created the DSLR full frame camera. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, they're onto something really big here. But the problem with the Sony system was the menu, which I used the Sony for a period of time, and I hated the menu, and I didn't like the size of the lenses. They're slowly building their stable, but their lenses are huge compared to other mirrorless cameras in the market. So again, I thought more about this, and I think this has basically made me think about the old days when I used to play a lot of golf. And I used to think, well, okay, go out there, and I was hitting the ball well, but I wanted to hit the ball a little bit further, so I'd go and buy a new driver. What was the problem with that? No, I hit the ball further into the woods, caused me more trouble. So my game wasn't good, so I bought a new putter, and the putter wasn't any good after a period of time. What's wrong with it? I'm thinking to myself. In actual fact, there was nothing wrong with the tool, it was me. And I think this applies to photographers. I think many photographers out there feel that they have to get better equipment to improve their photography. And that simply is not the case. If you look at the images that have been created by the greats, Cartier-Bresson, for argument's sake, and Latigue and Brassai, they didn't have what we would term today as quality cameras and equipment. Taking it a stage further, you also hear the argument now is, well, I want a DSLR camera because it is quicker to focus. Now that doesn't ring with me, focusing sharp and quicker with a camera. If you go back to when you used a film camera, you used to have to focus manually turning the ring, or if you use the zone focus system, that's quicker than any autofocus system of the camera. So my mind was really starting to sort of churn out as regards to what do I need in my camera equipment. Well, as you know, I have 3 Fuji cameras, the X100S, which was the second version of that series, the XE1, which was the first version, that's now into its 3rd reiteration of that camera, and I now just recently bought the X Pro 1. The reason I've got those 3 is basically they all do different jobs for me now. The X100S is effectively my street camera. My XE1 is an infrared camera now. I've converted the sensor, and my X Pro 1 gives me that interchangeability with the lenses. But when I tried the X Pro 2 out just recently, and it's a great camera, don't get me wrong, I was thinking, is there any need for me to buy this camera at 1,300, nearly 1,400 pounds for the body only? That's a lot of money. If I'm a professional, there's no question. I'd go out and buy it tomorrow and put it down to the accounts. That doesn't that's not worth considering. But as an amateur photographer, as I am, and I enjoy my photography, you have to watch what you're spending your money on. And the camera improvements are incremental these days. There's nothing really major significant about the new cameras that are coming out. You may have a bigger sensor. You'll have a problem on your computer with the download on the files, and it gives you a better opportunity to crop your images. But then does that make you a lazy photographer? Because you can say, well, I can crop this down at the end, and I can just trigger away and take the photograph, and then I can crop at a later stage. Does that make you a lazy photographer? I think it does. So there's so many opportunities out there now for people to get in cameras. And I really do say to those that are out there, please don't just jump on the bandwagon because the X Pro 2 is out now. The XT2 is coming out in a couple of weeks' time. And from what I've read about those two new cameras of the Fuji range, the only real major improvement of the camera is the sensor and faster focusing speed. But as I said to you before, faster focusing doesn't make you a better photographer. Now, another question I wanted to ask myself as I was going on and thinking about this subject of cameras. There's a big argument out there. Can I use a mirrorless camera for sports photography? Now, a lot of guys will say no. But then I'm thinking to myself, why? They're saying because I can't focus fast enough. You go back to the great photographers, the great sports photographers old days, and look at the work they were creating. They didn't have autofocus. They used the zone system. They had everything available to them that basically these cameras do today. But obviously the modern camera these days can do a little bit more, and it has a better sort of range of pickup in the way the photograph is taken. There's more range of the color tones and the tonality of the images. So I really don't go along with this argument with regards to the better camera today is the one which is going to help improve your photography. It isn't. It's your eye and your practice. Practicing is the be-all and end-all of any sport or any activity. I go back to golf. Why was I hitting bad shots? I hadn't practiced enough. Why was I hitting poor putts? I hadn't practiced enough. Is my photography improving? Not really, because I'm not shooting enough. So take your camera out as often as you can, get to know your camera throughout, and use the menu system as well as you can. Get to know the manual. You know, I came across a photographer who does a regular podcast, who's followed by thousands. And I couldn't believe it when I asked him a simple question about the camera. He had the XT1. He didn't like the fact that the images were low in contrast. And I suggested to him, I said, you know, you can change that in the menu. He said, can you? He hadn't read the manual, and he's a professional photographer. So really my point is to all you guys out there that are looking at new equipment, don't get fooled into the idea that you think your camera is going to improve your photography, because I'll tell you straight, it's not going to. Where you improve your photography is by practice and studying the masters and studying your work and being ultra critical of your work. That's the way you're going to improve. But above all, practice. Don't get fooled into buying a new camera to improve your photography, in my opinion.